falling, and as you'd expect, Russia's budget surplus has suddenly dried up. Thanks largely to reduced demand from China or recession, Brent crude is now trading at just over $80 per barrel, well down from its June highs. Similarly, thanks to a milder than average winter, the well coordinated European gas storage initiative, Dutch TTF, has fallen to a bit over €100 per megawatt hour. Now, while that's still way higher than the pre war average, it's down 60% from its August peak. And it's also worth mentioning that Russia is exporting less gas than it once was. Russian gas exports to Europe have fallen by about 80%, from 2.5 billion cubic meters in February to about 500 million today. Now, lower oil and gas prices combined with reduced export volume obviously imply lower revenues. The police don't want you to know this.
They don't want you to know this. Drivers, if you pay for your own car insurance, watch this video. I used to pay $162. All right, New York Times with a giant story about Donald Trump's taxes, and a lot to go through here. So there's a bunch of takeaways and things that he did wrong, and then at the end, I want to tell you about who he owes everything. He's paid almost no taxes. So 10 out of 18, so they don't have the last 2 years. 10 out of 15 years, he's paid nothing. So if you're a Young Turks member on YouTube and you gave $2 by hitting that join button below, you paid. We'll get back to whether that makes sense or not in a second.
That makes sense. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. And welcome to the series, The Old Crone. Right? The old ancient crone. And yesterday, or the day before, whatever day it was, they're all mixing into one. Thus, I'm pretty much here in the deep woods, and I've been here all by my lonesome for the last 18 years, but I have been in the last 2 since the pandemic. This was my little retreat here. Is a nature preserve. It's an environmental. There's only 2 state roads in I don't know how many, 400 square miles maybe, and it's between the Blue Ridge and the Appalachian, and in between whatever mountains were squeezed. So it's like an accordion, right? And it's sawtooth mountain range. So it's up and down, up and down, up and down, here and there, all around. Woo! So there's 2 county roads that do this, and they were not designed for tractor trailers. And now more people move in here. There are all these Dollar Generals everywhere. So the big tractor trailers go into all these stores, like just within 3 square miles from me. But that's as the way the crow flies. But that's the lake, the river, the waterfalls, all the mountains. Anyway, so there are a lot of squirrely roads. There's only 2 county roads, and all over the place. Dollar General Center, they're demographers. There were guys like me. I used to do this job, and we'd go and figure out what that general piece of real estate was going to be worth and how it should be. What roads, what highways, what power lines, what water lines, what gas lines, all that kind of stuff, right? And we would see if that neck of the woods was supported. So we work for an entity like, let's say, Brookings, right? People know about that. And those guys study everything, and I work for them a lot. And I would say I wasn't a salaried guy. I was totally project oriented. I was a subcontractor. I've always been a subcontractor. So I always had clients. So yeah, so I would go study this for somebody like Dollar General, and we'd figure out what it was, or a state, or a municipality, a small city like we went to. I think it was Houston. Yep, and the NASA had just really nuts, with the moon, whoop-de-doo, and so NASA has Houston there. It's where they have a good chunk because of LBJ. He stuck big chunk of the U.S. government in Houston. So anyway, it had been a number of years, and the moon thing was going over. It was already done, but they planning to do other things. And this was, I think, in the 80s or late 70s, 80s, early 80s, late 70s, somewhere in there. Anyway, went down there with a group, and here's Houston City. Here's NASA over here, which is like bigger than what was the old Houston. And they're going to build out, and I have this gigantic plane heading towards the Mexican Gulf, right? And they're probably, I don't know, 50 miles. You can't see it, but it's just right over there, and it's all flat all the way there, right? But anyway, we were brought in there by the state. The state guy goes, "So we're going to turn this into the next. This is going to be the larger part of it. This is going to be we're expanding out here, right? We're going to build a whole new center city, and we're going to build, that's the hub, and there's going to be spokes going out to suburbs all over the place, right?" And so we, get to it and see about what electricity and water, and they're going to add 2 million people in less than 15 years. You know what? Which they probably tripled that, and so the amount of water, amount of electricity, everything was under. Right. But the place where they wanted to build their city to put 2 million people was a floodplain, right? And if it floods, it's going to be standing water of about 10 feet, right? If it rains, or if there's a tsunami, if there's something, water coming that way, because it comes here, and then the highlands are all around it. So, bang. And then, Texas doesn't have many mountains, but it does have a little higher elevations. Anyway, so we did our little report, and we handed it out to everybody, and then we went away. Of course, they ignored it completely and built the city that shouldn't be built. So a few years ago, when a hurricane went there and parked itself right over Houston, they had that thing that we talked about. Oh, that never happened. We haven't had a flood here in at least 20 years. So that is kind of the place that humanity is stuck in, right? And Freud said whenever somebody does the same thing over and over and over, that is the true sign of insanity. Not all these other things, which are just basically neuroses and a few psychoses, but nothing big. If you deal with it, talk about it, change certain habitual actions. Really, mental health is just changing habitual actions. Stop drinking, stop doing drugs. Stop. ODing on whatever you're ODing on, right? So that's basically mental health. And when whole society is self-medicating, then your society is sick. Not just the people, just can't blame the people. So that little atom, is it biology or sociology, right? So the bottom line, to understand this social structure, you have to understand the psychosocial, cultural, forensic, cultural anthropology of the thing. And all of mental health and social dynamics are a spectrum. It's not, oh, you are a psychopath, or you are body dysfunction, or, eating, no. It's a spectrum, right? And we're all on it. We all got it. And I learned at a very young age some things that people might cause as, oh, they're disabled. No, taken from a different point of view, they are, augmented or able. Learn how to use the thing you got, and you're going to be really good at it. Like I worked at the VA, and they were working on prosthetics, right? So I worked there, and then I didn't, right? Then I went off and did other things. But I still had those friends, especially the ones that we were thinking about new protocols, how to do medicine different than how it's being done, right? Then and now, not much has changed. But prosthetic world, yes, because so many people were stepping on landmines or bang, so people got diabetes, losing their legs, right? So they were figuring out all the different kinds of prosthetics, and that's where I kind of got into robotics. And so Um, they came up with this metal that was kind of like very light, kind of like aluminum, but very strong and very the metal was developed for springs, right? And so they made this thin strip out of this metal, and it looked like a foot but backwards. And you ran on the heel and you bounced, right? Or something like that. This is a while back. Anyway, so they got two pretty much equally athletic guys. Same weight, same health, same muscle, all that. Not fat. Workout. One guy has no legs. The other guy's got legs, right? And they are both runners, right? And were very competitive when they both had legs, right? So they were testing this out, and this guy was a runner, but he was running with clunkier prosthetics, right? State of the art at the time, but not these little blades, right? So they were testing these two guys out, right? Comparing them, but it's like apples and oranges, but still doing a cut. Right? Anyway, guy put on these, they called them blades, put on the blades and, worked with them for a number of weeks. Then they had the big thing, and the guy in the blades was like 20, you know, he was, they were doing a long distance run, and he had circled the guy by the fifth circle, right? 10th circle, he was 3 circles around that guy. Towards the middle, towards the end, he was like 20 times, the blades were like amazing, right? So there's a guy who would be handicapped, but man, he's running faster than the Olympic guy. And that's why I don't let Olympic guys wear the blades, even if they got feet. Let's see. Let's see. Buzz, haven't heard from you in a long time. I'm sat medicating in bed and love your Irish crone adventures, all your adventures. In fact, thank you. Haven't seen you in a while, Fuzz. Good to see you, buddy. Anyway, so everything is interconnected, right? That is the truly amazing thing. So here I am out here in the deep green in my little man cave, and there are all these rich people moving in. So for 18 years, nobody around here because it was around 50 miles to the nearest Walmarts. But once they started dropping, um, you know, Dollar Generals everywhere, and there used to before the Dollar Generals, there used to be these great stores, very similar to the stores out there in the little uh, places of Ireland that probably don't exist anymore. But pretty much when I lived in Ireland in the 80s, so the old crone times, late 70s, early 80s. Um, I was, from 1970 until 1982. I went to Ireland about 5 times. So anyway, and 4 of those times, I got to, no, 3 of those times, the old crone was there waiting for me. 4th time, when I brought Don, we couldn't find the place. Brought her up on that road, couldn't find the place. 5th time, when I brought the rich ladies in 2005, it was like a different planet, right? So, but that was here 18 years ago. They had these things all around that I called holler stores. And what it was this whole place used to be truck farms. It used to be the bean capital of the world. Back in 1970, the average truck farmer here was making $27,000 a year, right? And that in 1970, $27,000 a year is like maybe 200 grand today, right? Give or take. And they were doing pretty good. They owned their place. They had their stuff. They made everything, And so when, Monsanto came in here and got rid of Birdseye and those guys and stopped, went to unipolar farming rather than super duper diverse bioregion farming. He killed the place. So when I got here, that had started to change about 10 years before I got here, right? I mean, really serious. I think Monsanto got here in the 70s, but they got all their ducks in a row within 10 years and started. So they went from super diverse bioregion farming to Christmas trees tobacco, feed corn, and feed sunflowers, right? Industrial sunflowers, I should say. And that's it. They grew them, and they were all GMO. They grew them all in the same place, sprayed all the same stuff, didn't do anything but use 20 years. That's all they did. So just go look at the historical reference of all of that. So we're in a different land. So I was I still am out in what I call the three counties. Two are in North Carolina. One's almost West Virginia. Well, one's in North Carolina. One's in West Virginia or Virginia, and the other one's in Tennessee. Right. So, and I'm like, just if I had really long legs, I could stand in all three states. So this is that really squirrely place where, as a real long state comes to a little teeny bit. It's right about there. So anyway, I was here 18 years. Not all the time. I was here 2 or 3 weeks in spring, 2 or 3 weeks summer, 2 or 3 weeks in fall. That was it. Otherwise, I was working. I was other places. I was taking care of my folks. I was doing all kinds of other stuff in those 30 years, right? Or 20 years that I had this place. But I was doing 10 years before I bought this. But by that time, I had a nice little cash flow. I didn't have to work too hard. And I was doing a lot of traveling, and so I kept stumbling into places. So I stumbled into this place, and I bought it. Really, I had the cash in my pocket, right? And the banker said, "No. Let me give you a mortgage. You don't, your credit. You don't have any. You always pay. So let's just do this. Keep the mortgage, pay the payment. We'll put it in an account over here. All that money you were going to put into just take it out of your pocket and pay for this. What we're going to do with this is put it into they had these great, I don't know where the interest rates were, but they were really great in my favor. So he said, if you can put this money in here for a year and a half, you can put, X, I will give you X plus almost X in interest. And that money, you will have this little, mortgage over here, and I'll just take the $80 or 120, whatever it was, and pay that mortgage off. Then you don't have to think about it. Automatic pay, right? Same bank, same everything, just bang, bang, boom, right? So I did that, no problem. So within 2 years, I got to a point when that thing came due. I basically took a third of that money that I made and paid off that mortgage, and then took that other chunk and started, clean this place up. But I had a place I had some property on top of a mountain right on the border of North Carolina and Tennessee, and that was really beautiful. And but I never built anything. I about 2 years before then, when I was in Asheville, and the federal government, I guess it was even earlier than that, the federal government was going to build the I-26 corridor, because the road that all these tractor trailers were going up and down was 21 and 19. And it was like the roads around here, But and then the traffic grew more and more and more. And so they said, we got to build this. We got to build 40 miles of interstate, and then redo it through Asheville, and then keep redoing it all the way down to 40. And so, okay, so that was the motif. And so there was a place called Marshall, maybe Bloody Madison County. And Madison County was, if you look on the map, is in North Carolina, up in that mountain that I was living in, right? And there is the state line, and then over here, and they call it something else over here. But in reality, the folk who lived there for everything call that part of Tennessee Madison County, right? So, and it's like straight out of the comic books, But these folks are the major what they export, right, is shine and bud, and they have been doing it for 100 years, if not more, right? And here is where NASCAR started. All those guys running, shine, driving. This was the center of that. I mean, Bristol Speedway is just right over there, right? So, and that whole town is just the raceway. Anyway, so that's where I got my school bus, right? And I got it from this lesbian who worked at the Asheville bus thing, and she used to go into it was LBGQTS before any of that nightclub in Asheville. It was just kicking. And when I came there, and those guys heard that I was Mr. Disco, they came. I mean, come, can you spruce? You know, it was really super kitsch 1970s disco. I mean, for 19 and what's truly amazing, Asheville had 6 discos in the 70s. They had this place, the old Orange Peel was doing it. There was a bizarre place underneath a shopping center in North Asheville. There was a place in Biltmore Village and a few other like private clubs. So it's kind of cool, right? Oh yeah, there was Estelle's in the big hotel. Oh yes, and the big ho downtown had a club too. So anyway, once these people heard that I, and they hadn't done anything since they built the place in the 70s. So there I am in when did I get there? I guess I got there in 91, Asheville. Yep. So they needed sprucing up, right? So Lucy, I'm home. So I was doing that. And so I got to know all these places. And there was this gay club, two. One stone cold gay. You have to be gay to get in because it's secret. It's like the Masons. But because I'm their electrician, that is always my go-to card, right? And they love me. I'm sweet. I tell stories. I'm fun. I can dance like nobody's business. And I was still kind of thin then. And I was probably 50 pounds over my good weight, right? I'm just like 240, 250, something like that. But when I look, when I was 460, I look pretty good. I mean, girls, hey, buddy, how you doing? Anyway, so that's when they knew I was a real whale, right? Um, so the gay club there, I got to know those guys pretty good, and so in that gay club there was a girl who's everyone's mechanic, and she was one of the major mechanics at the Asheville School District bus neck of the woods, right? And those guys get federal money for buses, and they drive them around for a bit, and like maybe 10, 15 years, but by the book, even if that bus is like 100%, if these guys have been keeping it up to good shape, they have to sell the bus, right? At like, almost set price, right? So this girl, she's working there, she would buy those buses like for nothing, like for a couple $100. And they're great. They're in great shape. Great brakes, great everything, great tires, great, in great shape. Good to go for another 30, 40 miles, 1,000 miles. Engine great, everything. She pulls all the chairs out, except for a couple. She puts in beds and, she makes kitchen, bathroom, turns it into an RV, wood stove. And that was my bus. So she, bought one, remember, for not much, because she knew me. I actually danced with her. I was a good dancer. I danced with everybody. As long as you were wearing a dress, I'd dance with you, right? The guys who would come in with a beard, dress, dance with them. And a few years, many years, not many, about 5 years later, 4 years later, I just started staying in abandoned buildings in Nashville because they were there, and I had done it in New York, no problem. I knew everybody in the city government. I said, I'm going to do this. It's going to make the place great. It's going to be like Soho. Well, and look what I've already done here. Woo! So pretty much Asheville was a town I could do anything I wanted to in, and I could have been a zillionaire, right? The guy who was Julian Price, he's the guy who made Asheville, right? In that he was heir of the cigarette fund money, and he felt kind of guilty about that. So he spent his whole life trying to do righteous things, which he did. So he stumbled into Asheville and said, whoa, this is amazing. And he was a big fan of architecture. So he bought up like 20 or 30 really frigging the best architectural buildings in Asheville. Right? He didn't do anything. He went in there, bought it, kind of cleaned it out, like get the rats and this out and whatever you know leaks there were that the roof might get destroyed. He did that kind of just stopping whatever deterioration, and then we're going to figure out what we're going to do. But we don't have to rush, right? So he bought them for like this is when Asheville didn't become it was dead. It was amber until 1996 because they would not have paid off their depression debt until 96. They spent a lot of money in the 20s to be whoop-de-doo. That's where all that great architecture, where Wall Street came from, where Lexington Avenue came from, where City County Plaza came from. All of that was straight up Biltmore, Astor, 1920s. Woo woo! Turning it into the Paris of the South. And so, but Asheville was dead. It didn't even have a restaurant. It had the Burger King, and they had a few other things like that, and they had a couple of holler joints. It was great. Greek couple had a great diner right by the railroad, but nobody would go there except lives. But it was great Greek food. A couple of great places like that. One out in North Asheville, this place. Another one when you're Biltmore Village. I would say it for restaurants, basically. Three Brothers. That was another Greek place. Anyway, I bought a bus, and I had, like I said, I had a nice apartment, but I also took over these abandoned buildings because people were coming in, artists, all kinds of crazy people were coming, and you want not to have homelessness. What you do is you give people a home. Right? Habitat for Humanity is nice. I like those guys. I work for those guys. I worked on a lot of their houses as their ME, right? Their licensed master electrician. But their whole business thing was upended because they were part of the redlining. They would go in and take the nicest places and buy them from the city for $1 and get grant money to put good stuff into them. And then they'd fix them up, commercial or residential. And then they'd sell them, and they'd sell them at a righteous price, relatively, right? Not so much 100% market price, but not what they got it for. They in property, time, and material, they probably have 30,000 in it, and they sell it for 60. So they take that 30 and put it into their organizational structure, and they're a nonprofit, and it's all good. And those people get a really nice house that probably, if they bought it in the place they came from, would cost $200,000. They buy it for 60 without realizing that they're right in the middle of the hood, that they're the only bourgeois person within 40 blocks, and which will suck all of the energy that could have been there for development, right? And so more and more people like them will come and push out to people who've been there for generations, right? And that's wealth distribution. So that's Asheville. I was there, man. I could have bought. I had access. I knew people who I worked for that I did things for them that even my parents. But please, I took my father into Asheville once and took him to West Asheville. I said, Dad, there are 40 houses here. Look at these houses. They're shit houses. They haven't been paid. I said, no, Dad. Take a look at these houses. These are houses that were built in the 1890s. Look at the structurals. They got columns. They're beautiful. They got gigantic yards. I can buy like 30 of those for $100,000. The guy who owns all that just wants to get out. He just inherited it from this person, that person. He just wants to get out. And I offered him $100,000. I could have probably always said, well, go back and see me take it for $5. And that was my dad, right? And I said, that's when I was consciously intent. I go, so I can go to somebody else or a number of the people I know that like me more than my father, and trust me and have respect for what my mind. You're saying you're crazy, like all the people that like the other day, like in July or August or maybe September, It all runs in the same. But there were still leaves on the trees, but they were starting to fall down enough to like cover my driveway and my front yard, right? And so I'm just, and it was a beautiful day. And where I sculpted the property, I'm in the holler. So, the sun comes up from the east, and about 10 in the morning, it finally gets in the holler, right? And it sets behind that mountain over there around 4. So 10 to 4, it's like a microwave oven, right? But from about 6 to 10, there are places where the mountains, so there are columns of light that go through my property that are truly mind-boggling. And the same way when the sun sets. And also when the moon rises, especially if there's not a cloud, right? And the humidity. I live in a dank place. So, but that in the summertime, that's good. It's like having air conditioning without having air conditioning, right? These are all things I thought about. Being conscious this is how this happens, right? So I got this place and it was for 18 years, nobody was here but me and the animals, and I was in the last, like I said, that corner, the 3 counties corner, um, the last of what this place had been. So from the time I moved here until about oh, 2010, there were what I call holler stores. People had farms. Now Birdseye and all those guys have left, and so they'd have to truck their shit way, way farther than where the guys were right here because their vegetables were so great. They had the freezing bango, like from World War II until 1970 something. This was a center. There's one of the center, Birdseyes and all those other guys. Ho, ho, ho. Vegetable freezing, right? And that's why they had such an amazing people here were making a pretty good living, the American dream. And their kids were going up to college and leaving and blah, blah, blah. So when I got here, that was going away, but those people were still kind of here. So they had to make a living. So they still grew the food, but not as much. And all those people, there were, like I said, 19,000 people living up in these hollers. Now there's only 3,000, redlining and OxyContin and taking away the work. I mean, if you had a little piece of thing, you could make a couple of grand a month, right? So anyway, I got to know this place back when I was, doing the demography thing for I-26, because I-26 is maybe 20 miles over that away, west of here, and so they wanted the big picture because they wanted to look at all the other roads, the ancillary roads, and also the utilities, right? And this place was for shit. A utility company. It was a single line, right? I don't know if you guys know anything about transmission of power, but Tesla invented polyphase alternating current. So you look at the big pole or the big tower, they have 4 wires. They have 3 hot ones, and then another wire, ground, usually above it, right? And that high voltage is being not going across the wires. Those are waveguides. It's all around that thing. So anyway, this area was a single line, right? So you have the big towers, and then you have the big poles, and they got a bar on. It's got 3 wires and a ground wire down here, right? And then they have transformers every which way. And then they split that shit up and take it out into different neighborhoods. Well, this whole area around here that's now going crazy with development, basically had 1 wire at not the most, and the poles were like this and this and this. I mean, because only poor people are done, who cares, right? And and if you want to judge a country by its culture, etc., it's how its poorest people live. I mean, that's what Jesus said, most important people are the poor ones, right? The last shall be first, right? So basically, when I got here, it was all of that. And then they tried to build, because over that way, there was Boone over this way, and over that way is a place called Banner Elk, which was a teeny weeny. There are a ton of these little teeny towns around here. Little Switzerland, Micahville, Banner Elk, Grandfather Mountain, and a whole bunch more, right? Well, the mob came here in late 70s, early 80s with $40 million and bought up every little town. And Banner Elk is the best example. Van Boone is another great example. And if you go down 321 towards Charlotte, there are about 5 towns that are all tourist towns. and they wanted to recreate the hipsterness of Asheville and the kitschiness of Waynesville of North Carolina and the Dollywoodness of Tennessee. So, and that's what they did up here. And so this was the last place to go, right? And it's had different starters at different times, but it still couldn't get over having to be 50 miles from the nearest Walmarts. But once they started plopping Dollar Generals everywhere, because they're mini Walmarts, right? And so, and run by Eastern mob money. So not Eastern American, Eastern East. So between when they were really doing good in the 70s and when I got here, the Dollar Generals really, there was 2. One in a county seat over there and one over where the main road is, right? And that was where they put their toe into the woods. Boom, 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 boom. Who's calling me? It's the Magic Man. Hey, Magic Man. Are you alive? Are you alive?
Hello.
Uh-huh.
Are you?
You have to turn one of us off.
I am alive. Hold on.
That's a Magic Man. He must seen the show, and he's joining the show.
I am the show.
Because he has so many he's bigger than the screen.
No. But we are all the show.
We are all the show. Yeah.
So that's what I've learned.
Yep. So how long have you been watching?
I left you a voicemail. Not very long. I left you a voicemail concerning some technical concerns that you had.
Okay.
I was doing a little poking around.
Okay,
Some of the videos weren't coming across the channel. But I think we may have a solution for that.
Okay. I'll talk to you off show.
Yeah, it has something to do with once the video has been uploaded.
Right.
There's 3 different statuses that you can select.
Oh, I get you.
And one is public, one is private, and one is unlisted.
Right.
And I was reviewing the one that you sent me via the email.
Right.
Spooky, I believe is the title of the show. And I said, why does it say unlisted? So that's why I did some homework.
Yes.
So
I've done that before. I inadvertently hit that button, because it's a frigging black screen and the writing is gray and the buttons are red. You can't even see them.
Well, and I know you also have challenges with your eyesight.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, you can't see it. So anyway. But I gotten back on public, and so most of the shows are going up, and I'm starting the new series. Every time I talk to this guy, I don't know what he does, but it's like he puts his phone in the toilet. Right? You can never hear him. You can never hear him. You can never hear what he has to say, but you can hear the flushing of the toilet or the spoon going in the bowl. Like it's like right in your head, and there's always the sound of tearing. He's always tearing things. I don't know what it is, and the sound of tape, like he's mummifying someone. It's what is all that noise? He left us. Where was I? I thought he was going to be one of his fun characters, right? Instead of him doing arts and crafts project. Anyway, what was I saying? Boop, do, 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 do. But that was good information. I've known I've done that, but I forget this shit. I just forget it. He's back. He's back. He's back. There you are. There you are.
Hi.
You're back.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. They wanted to know how I felt after my colonoscopy.
Oh, how was it? Did they leave any hardware back up there?
No, as far as I could tell, no.
Oh,
But
because
unfortunately, it was. They could not do the complete colonoscopy because I was not sufficiently
sedated.
evacuated.
Oh, you didn't evacuate enough. Okay.
Yes, although I followed all the protocols that were given to me,
Right.
but I was suspicious that they did not give me a prescription laxative.
Here we are talking about shit, kids. You know, the dark, dirty shit. You know, the crap.
When you
crap
get
in your
older,
colon.
This is what you.
But
you
know,
look
the
forward
thing.
to, so.
No. The real thing about constipation is diet. So if you eat a little flax in your cup of coffee, and you eat prunes and prune juice, you flow like the river.
Yes.
You know, so.
I cannot dispute that.
And the other thing, but that takes a little discipline, and you got to keep doing it. But I love prunes. I mean, instead of eating popcorn or candy, give me a prune. You know, I just love it. But anyway, did you catch any of the other old crones?
No. And you're spelling it crown.
Oh, I'm spelling. Okay, so
that might be the reason why people aren't seeing it.
So Crone is what? Crone?
Yes.
Okay.
But you're spelling it crown.
Well, she was a queen in my heart.
Crone can wear a crown.
Yeah, she did. She had the feathers coming out the back of her head.
Yeah. Have you ever told the listeners about how the original Crone story from the Pigeons channel?
No.
Because that's actually worth seeing, even though it is supporting someone who is not exactly being very nice to Sensei.
Right.
We forgive him.
Right. He's the unmentionable one.
Unmentionable.
Yeah.
Well, it's a shame we can't put that one on your channel.
Yeah, for years I've been trying to have him do that, but man, he doesn't even put a, on the tagging, where to go see more of this. He never does that.
Well, there might be a way to do it where we could take a still image and just rip the audio from it, and then have a copyright disclaimer.
I don't even care. It's
I'll post it on mine.
Yeah.
But it inspired a lot of people, and that you're still.
And they still seem to find it. I don't understand that, but one day I will get a staff that will be truly professional and not half blind and not know anything about. I know just enough to be dangerous, right? And so when that and that seems to work, and so it seems to have its effect, and so I'm not worried about it myself, but it's more like what I'm observing. I'm out here in the middle of nowhere. So I'll give them the story of how this place is nowhere. It's like really as far out in the middle of nowhere, but still be somewhere. I have a real knack of finding those places, right? So, and it has been a nature preserve for 18 years, and finally the rich folk are moving in, but they're finding that they really can't stand being here. So
they're not energetically aligned
with nature and love and being self-reflective. And
they're being repelled.
Yes, but they're being stuck
on an energetic level.
But because they spent money to be here, they're stuck. They made this choice almost on a whim, and also, oh, it's the end of time, so the pandemic, we have to go someplace where nobody, all those terrible people, I can't stand them. Well, they are the terrible people, and they came here, so they're doing a good job.
So they're getting a reflection of themselves.
Oh yeah, and it's quite interesting because whatever change they
like
may have gone through, and you can see this if you watch yourself. You can see yourself doing all the stupid things you shouldn't be doing, and you kind of realize it, but you just go along with it just to go along, because it's easier to go along than to really be consciously aware and doing your best. You know, it takes.
Well, it's much more difficult to confront one's shortcomings than to actually truly accept them and try to move past them
and make the change, right? So. But being here, but you can see people who do that, and they can. Oh, what's the right word? There's self-medication, but there's also when you are like a working drunk, or you're capable to keep doing it, but you're just damaging yourself. There's a term for that. I forget what it is. And anyway, but you see that you if you like the person or care for the person, you might say something. They might listen to you, or they might get angry at you, or whatever. But you still observe them, even if you are doing it from afar. And it usually takes somewhere between 12 and 30 years for that person to really hit bottom and either die or change that pattern, right?
Correct.
But
that's my story.
Here,
it took me 20 years to wake up to that.
Right. Here, the energetics is so intense, and they don't understand it. That 20 years happens in 2.
It could accelerate.
Yeah, that kind of acceleration. So this place is like, a rocket ship, and I'm just sitting in the middle of it, watching it fly by, and it's not that bad. Meaning, because of all the mitigating things of, the geography and the weather and a whole bunch of stuff. They can't get. They can only hurt. The only thing they can hurt the worst is themselves.
Correct.
And not burn. Even if they burn their house down, it won't hurt the neighborhood that much, because it's not really built up. It's not really anything. And
sure.
So it's a very interesting thing to be. And I've been thrown back here. I was gonna not spend the winter here, and so far, even though it's very dank, it's been pretty warm. Last night it was 50. Right now it's 65 or something. But it feels like 40. It's dank. Even when it's sunny, it's dank. That's what you get when you live in a house.
Very dank.
Yes. New York is kind of dank. You go to the Lower East Side.
Yes, it is.
It was a septic pool of nature before white guys got there. No Indians lived on Manhattan, that was for sure. So, except uptown, maybe uptown. But so New York is very dank. Is where you live dank?
I don't know. What does dank mean? Do you mean humid?
Yeah, humid. Yeah.
It can be.
Humid plus. Humid plus.
Humid and like funk.
Yes, humid and funk. And
it can be.
And even in the winter, it's humid.
Sometimes.
That's when it's dank.
That's when it's frustrating.
Yes, it's like what the. It's dank. So, anyway, so I was going on about this, that, and the other thing, and kind of why this is the series.
It's the dank hour.
Right, the dank hour.
So you don't hear any tearing or flushing or any.
Oh, when you do it, I hear it like unbelievable. Yes.
How about now?
Well,
you hear it now?
Hopefully not.
Well, I'm trying to help you.
Wow, I'm good. Then you're doing a good job.
Well, I want to clearly.
Are you in your artist mode right now?
I am creating as we speak.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So
but the stuff has already been pre-cut, so you're not gonna.
Okay. So
you might hear a little bit. You might hear a little bit.
He was preparing to be, Magic, Mr. Magic artist, right? That's what I call it.
Something like that. Well, I've been working on this piece about my dad.
Oh yeah.
It would have been his birthday yesterday.
Ooh.
He would have been 80. Let's see, I think 86.
So does that make him a Pisces?
I think feces is more.
No.
But,
Come on.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I know my mother is a Taurus.
Taurus.
My wife is a Sagittarian.
Okay.
I am an Aquarius.
Yep.
So if anybody in the chat can figure out what my pops is, it's certainly appreciated. Your father's an Aquarius. My father couldn't be.
No, my dad wasn't Aquarius. My dad was a triple Virgo.
Yesterday, right? Yes. Oh, right. My wife is saying that it's my dad was a Sagittarius.
Nice. Oh, nice.
Which is actually my wife's sign too.
Yeah. You're drawn to Sagittarius.
That's kind of. Well, these patterns repeat.
Oh yes.
In our lives.
Unless you consciously change them.
Right. Well, you can be more conscious of them, certainly, and then if it's an unfavorable pattern, you can avoid it.
Right.
But my situation with my wife has been a favorable pattern.
Good. You're favorable.
Because she treats me with dignity and respect, and also will not allow me to be an ass.
Okay. She speaks straight to you.
It's very.
That's what I call my acting voice.
Acting voice.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
Well, you take the Greek root. Acting is action, right? So that's my action voice. And so I was trained as an actor, right? Went to theater school. And they teach you to...
Where did you go?
I went to Juilliard and Hofstra University in Long Island.
I know Hofstra's on the island.
They got right near Garden City. Anyway,
yes.
They're east of Garden City, right where that big
east of Eden,
where the big Air Force base was, and that became the first Hollywood. All the first silent movies were made on that base because they had big hangars for airplanes. And then
makes sense.
And then Hofstra bought it and built their north campus on the runways. So they built these big 20-story apartment buildings, as student housing, and it looks like something from 2001. A bunch of obelisks put on a flat piece of concrete. It's very artistic, but you just wouldn't want to live there. It's like everything is up and down and concrete. It's like, please, not very human. So anyway, I was at that place in Juilliard. And Juilliard was great when I was there. And that Lincoln Center was its campus, and it had other buildings ancillary. But we were all over the place. That's what I liked about it. We did all kinds of stuff all over the city. So. And there were a lot of black box theaters that I did our classes in, because we studied with all different kinds of teachers, like Herbert Berghoff, Uta Hagen. I studied with those guys. They made me their ME. So yes, my serious voice, right? My acting voice, right? I call it my action voice because that's my action voice. So if someone says something, I look straight in their eyes, like they can't help. And if they're looking the other way, they can feel my eyes looking right in their eyes. And then I say things like this, and I talk like this. I don't do it long, but it gets the point across. My acting voice. And if I don't tell them that it's my acting voice, they think, what's wrong? What did I do wrong? Oh my God, he's going to hit me. Oh, blah, blah. And it puts them past the defense. Some guys would go into defense mode, put their fists up or something. But the other choice is, to go into the prone position, down on the floor, right? Or somewhere in between. So that's my acting voice. And I don't use it much, but sometimes it works very well. Back in the day, living on Avenue D, you sometimes had to use that a good deal. Did you ever live in the Lower East Side, Avenue D, and then you ever go down there?
I lived on Avenue A, between A and B on 5th Street for a very, very short amount of time.
That's a very bougie address. You're right near 2nd Avenue.
In the early 90s, not so much, but it certainly is now.
Oh, it was way more bougie then. I lived there in the 70s. In the early 70s. Early 70s.
What do you want to compare it to? Yeah, certainly.
Early 70s.
Certainly, by the 90s, it was very different.
Well, in the early 70s, it was like
I still couldn't afford it either way.
It was Peter Max. You know who Peter Max is?
He's an artist.
Yes, artist, right? And he did all those
LSD, revolutionary.
Bubble gum.
Very big influence.
Yes, he was. He had but it was like he represented an altered state. That was his aesthetic, right?
Yeah, I saw that movie.
Altered state. Yep. And so that's what the Lower East Side was from 67 to 72. It was that. It was all these, it was trying to be the West Village, right? But it was trying to get out of being, because the East Village was where all the people who came off the boat, whether they were,
that's correct,
Irish or Jewish,
Poles, Irish, Italian,
Jews. That neighborhood would change for every 10 years, and then they'd move up 2nd Avenue, right? So anyway, early, 65 to 72, Peter Max. 72 to 84, it was like my little neighborhood, my little block. 5 people were murdered every week for 20 years. Right? So between, 72 and 80 or 88, it was that. From 88, then the Christodora house came and Madonna moved into 9th and B, right across from the park. And
that's where the Christodora house is.
Yep.
That's right. Yep. And a lot of rich folks lived.
Right. Well,
that's what is that? Charlie Parker Place.
Yes. Right. And
that street is known as that.
That building used to be a hospital for the poor, and it was a hospital for the poor up until 72. 72 is when it closed down. They kind of just bricked it up and walked away, and then some guy bought it for nothing and turned it into Christodora. And I don't know if he paid Madonna or just made that a rumor, but soon as Madonna's going to move in, So yeah, so it was first Peter Max, then it was what's that? That Australian Road Warrior movie. They made 3 of them.
The Road Warrior.
Yeah, whatever. But he was Max too.
There's Mad Max,
right?
The Road Warrior, and Beyond Thunderdome.
First it was Peter Max, then Mad Max on the Lower East Side, and then above Thunderdome, right? Above Thunderdome, where the rich people live above the Thunderdome, right?
Thunderballs.
Yes, man. They think they have Thunderballs, but they don't. They really have what are known as China balls.
They have Benoit balls.
No. Benoit balls are very sturdy. China balls break after the first time used.
I can't have that.
No, can't have that.
No.
So anyway, what's truly interesting, no matter what different place I go to, the same cultural pattern occurs.
That is correct.
It's very bizarre. I go to a place that is as close to heaven on earth as you could get, and within 30 years, they turn it into a sewer. But certain places are stronger than that. And I have a feeling they're
beyond China balls.
Yeah, they're beyond. Now that's the next one. Beyond China balls. That's my next novel. Beyond China balls. I like that. Yes.
Thanks.
And you heard it first here, kids.
I I wasn't flushing or tearing.
No, not flushing or tearing.
But I do have to have another colonoscopy because I was full of shit.
So, how deep did they get in there?
I don't know. I was asleep at the time.
No, didn't they?
They said they were able to get in there 50%.
So, in that 50%,
they didn't see any polyps or
any
polio. They might have seen some polio string cheese, but that's about it.
So why don't you?
But I think it was just a nice way for them to bilk the insurance company for a second.
Of course.
But by using my anus.
Right.
I'm glad my asshole's worth a lot of money, apparently.
Right. But unless they have many other tests that are less invasive than that. And did you get?
Well, I took an SAT in high school. And
did you take? Did you shit in a hat?
Did I have a hat?
No. Did you shit in a hat?
No.
They have a test.
All the shitting was done in my house. They gave me instructions to evacuate at home, which I did, and liquid diet, which I did.
No. But before the colonoscopy, they have a number of tests they do without.
No, I didn't have the hat trick. No.
No hat trick, because that's in a lot of ways because it tells you whether you got cancer, 90%, right, without having anything stuck up your asshole.
Oh, that's a good way to go.
Right.
Maybe I should have opted for that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is what it is. But I will say I did like the anesthetic. It was quite nice.
Right.
Put me out.
Right.
I was a little concerned I wouldn't wake up, but I didn't care. Right. So then, but I woke up.
Yeah, you woke up.
And I guess because maybe my constitution has changed over the years. I was kind of concerned because the last time I was put under, when I got all 4 wisdom teeth removed, and I came from that operation, I was a little kind of obnoxious and rambunctious, and I thought I really didn't want to behave that way this time around.
With a snake up your asshole.
Well, there was nothing in my butt when I was revived.
Yeah.
Well, no, they took it out of me prior to waking me up. There was a nice stain on my, on the.
We don't have to go there. We don't have
on
to.
The blanket.
We don't have to go there, right? Except we might get a new audience that are,
Bob's Scat Channel.
Yeah, Bob's Scat Channel.
Come on down, kids.
Scatological tours. And remember, don't believe a word I say. And if you are so sensitive,
get a tube.
That you can't hear the word scatological, then this channel ain't good for you kids.
All right. Well, let's go on to a higher plane.
Okay. Higher plane.
I actually had a very, very powerful, symbolic dream.
Yeah.
Last night, where I was visited by Shango. Shango is a god of prosperity in the Santeria pantheon, and he appears because I've been worried about finances and things like that, and he told me don't worry, but he gave me a task to perform in the dream. He presented a statue of Mother Mary, which is also used a lot in Santeria. Does not necessarily represent
the right back.
Mary of Jesus, Mary fame.
Yeah.